Call the meeting to order.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bob Birch, today, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, I forgot he was gone.
on a bolt.
Yeah. Approve the agenda.
Yep, we do have a couple additional additions to the agenda today from Donna. So the first one is for an action item. She wants to recommend considering setting the date for the TNT meeting being December 13th of 2022. And there's a highlighted sheet about that on your, in front of you. And then the second thing is a consent agenda request, and that's to appoint Denise Becker to serve on the Water Planning Committee for a 3-year term. It would expire 12/31 of 2024.
What's the name again?
Denise Becker.
It's in that one sheet here. With those additions, I move to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
So move. Second.
Second. Ordinance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment. Action.
Our Zoom is going.
Okay, we don't have any appointments. Consent agenda. Everybody okay with that?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the 2 items on it.
One item, wasn't it?
We just added
it.
one.
We added
That was the
Denise
Denise Becker thing.
appointment.
Yeah, it's just the one, but the other one's an action item, made
No,
it. December
Well,
meeting.
there's the hire of a maintenance specialist
on the
consent.
consent agenda.
I just,
And then the Denise Becker one.
yeah, that makes
So
it
there's
just,
2.
yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
With those 2 requests, Denise Becker and James Sweet. Motion to approve that. 2.
I made the
You made the
motion.
motion, okay.
Second.
Motion in a second. More discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Action items. Number 1. Ryan, come on.
How you want to get?
Yes, so each year there's a National Association of County Engineers Conference. In 2023, it is in Orange Beach, Alabama. So historically, I've tried to go to the conferences when they're in the Midwest, shorter travel, nice quick, drive to get there when it's in Iowa or Wisconsin and stuff. Right now, I'm currently vice president of the Minnesota County Engineers Association. Next year, I will be, at this point, anticipate being president here in 3 months. The president and all the executive board members usually go to NACE. And actually, this next year, they anticipate that there will be at least half or over half of the county engineers from Minnesota are anticipated to be going to this next conference. So I would like to attend. Registration or signing up for the hotel room starts here in a couple weeks. They recommend that you book for a hotel room right away when it becomes available. If you don't, they say you will not get a room in that hotel and you'll be stuck trying to find a hotel in a different building and having to figure out transportation to get back and forth to the conference each day. travel, I don't know if this will ultimately become a plane flight or drive, being how far it is. I'm anticipating it probably would be a flight. Last time actually, I did drive to Buffalo with my own vehicle and did not submit for that mileage cost, just submitted for the tollways that we went across on that. So yeah, so that is essentially what it is for this next year. After this, I anticipate trying to get back to attending the NACE conferences in the Midwest. But for this next year, being that'll be the president of the association, there's different activities, duties they expect the president to do during that, thanking the attendees and different things. So
It's really quite an honor to have our Houston County engineer as president.
it will be.
You got an estimate on what you think it'll cost?
Flights, I look at flights and that, I think it ended up being maybe like $600 the last time, $500 or $600 for the flight. And then the hotel, don't have the cost for that yet. A lot of times that's being that the $600 range as well. So I'd anticipate in that $1,500 range total with that plus the conference registration. It's 4 days worth of conference. They usually have a lot of good sessions. Being that it's a national conference, people from all over the nation go there. So they usually have a southern type of tracks and northern stuff. So usually you can go to stuff either geared toward the warm weather climates or stuff geared toward the Midwest. Minnesota being Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa have really good turnouts. They usually have stuff geared toward our states, knowing that there'd be good attendance from this area. So there should be stuff, even though it's down south, there should be stuff on winter activities and stuff.
It's not budgeted, that's why you gotta come.
It is in the budget. We
It
did
is
put it in
in the
there.
budget?
It is in our 2023 budget. Yep, I have it in there. The reason coming to the board is because by county, one of our policies is for out-of-state travel is any travel over 500 miles. So out-of-state doesn't require, we don't need to come to that when we travel to La Crosse or jump in and out of Iowa. But it's because it's over 500 miles.
I'll make a motion to approve out-of-state travel for our engineer.
I'll second it.
Here, we have a motion in a second. More discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You.
Number two, consider approving the purchase of a 2020 Chevy Tahoe from the city of Spring Grove for $42,000.
This is a fully equipped one. I understood this when they were.
It's City Spring Grove's.
Radios in and ready to go.
Well, I guess it'd been nice if Brian was on.
Yeah.
But
I guess it'd be my understanding that we would bill back the city of Spring Grove then. Because
well, it's in the contract.
Yeah, but they want to, they don't want to keep it and have us using it. They want us to purchase it.
They want us to own it.
Then
So
they bill back and we would insure it and they would be billed for the amount of the insurance.
it's all covered in the contract, City of Spring Grove.
It is, but we have an initial layout of
Yeah.
cash that we don't really have budgeted anywhere.
Right.
So the board would need to approve that we are using funds for that.
So you're able to charge it back through the contract procedure. Save us going out and buying a new car.
Well, you can't get one, and a lot of them have been canceled, so I mean, it's, what is it, 2020, so it's not that old, so.
Yeah, I think it only has like, they say like 19,000 miles or maybe even less than that.
And you broke in yet.
You have to buy something for that money. Once or not.
It's set up and ready to go, so I don't see a problem with it. I'll make a motion to purchase the vehicle.
I second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to purchase the $22,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C. Consider amending the collaborative design group facilities utilization study. Agreement to include the justice center, thereby increasing the utilization study cost by $13,250 for a total cost of $63,130.
Yes, Commissioners, and good morning. This is being brought forward after the request to inquire as to the cost of including the Justice Center in the space utilization study. And this would be the cost. The Collaborative Design Group did a walkthrough the Monday prior to their discussion with you. And so, and then came back with this figure.
Our original contract was for 49,000.
Just under 50,000.
That was to,
Correct.
So, this building, Justice Center, that's 3 buildings.
No, the original contract was for the old jail, this building, and the community services building out on Vista. This one would include the Justice Center. That has a substantially fairly large footprint, has some other potential complications to it, if you will. But I don't know if this
Would this take into account the fact that we'll be losing prisoners in the next year or two?
well, what you end up doing with the jail is certainly up to you. This group isn't going to address
Okay.
that. However, I would assume it addresses whether or not that jail component, the detention center component, is what alternative fees, what complications or alternatives may or may not be feasible there, considering the infrastructure of that unit. And of course, the DOC rules as well.
Which they would get that information from the department head or Mr. Swedberg next year.
Well, the original,
well, it's just not the jail, not only the jail, there's other office space.
All the
Justice
courts.
Center, yeah, so
I think
the original,
the primary would focus for them, my assumption, I don't do their work, but they would be meeting with all the department heads in the off spaces that are current office space, discuss options for some of the smaller meeting rooms, what they could possibly be used for. There's potential reuse for some of the spaces on the lower level. So I believe the focus would be more on the office area rather than the jail part.
in our public discussions on doing consensus to do this office utilization study, we talked about the community service building out on Highway 44. Because we currently use that. We talked about the historic courthouse we currently use and the Justice Center that we currently use. So that was what our consensus was to do.
I thought our consensus was to do everything we owned.
No, that we use, that we currently use, because the idea was to condense it and get people into one building versus expanding into a building we don't even currently use. So, like I said, if this is, the contract was 49,000 for 3 buildings. To me, that's the Justice Center, Historic Courthouse, and Community Services Building on 44. That should cover what we need to do. The old jail wasn't even discussed in our public discussions.
I had presumed it was included.
Show me the proof of where we discussed it in any of our minutes or our meetings on this utilization study, this last one that we're.
We've done 4 or 5 studies already on it.
I mean, it was never brought up in workshop. It was never brought up in our public meetings. I asked Tess right here when she was sitting here, if we're gonna just do this utilization on the current buildings and office space we currently use now. And she said, yes. I took that as meaning the Justice Center, Historical Courthouse, and the Community Services Building.
So we're deleting the.
I'd say we should, yeah, go ahead.
We're deleting the old jail that was in the RFP. Or what-
Yeah.
The regular proposal, is that what you're saying?
May I make a point of clarification?
If we delete the old jail, then we'll still have our 3 buildings.
It isn't by building, if you will. It is by.
It says right here,
Or the design, probably.
it says right here, 3 buildings in the contract.
And they listed the 3 buildings.
Yep. Well, and that's how,
But the,
that's in this sheet here, that's how it came about that the old historical court, the historic jail is in here.
Mhm.
Commissioners, it's certainly up to you which buildings you wish to have analyzed for your space utilization study. The, just one point of clarification, I do think at minimum, there is confusion as to, because there was a lot of discussion over the years looking at our buildings. Commissioner Myrie, we haven't had multiple studies of that building. We had a use study, what uses might be feasible for it, but not for the space itself. The,
There was 3 options on that study. A brewery, a library, and an office space for the county.
but we never looked at what that meant as to if the county used it for office space.
That's what one of them was, is the county use of office.
I understand, Commissioner, but it wasn't as to how we would best configure that, potentially configure that space with the needs that we have, or even the need analysis, how it might fit in there. That said, if the county wishes to change and not have that space as part of its analysis as to what space we have to best and how to best utilize it, that's certainly up to this body here. Not me. The 3 buildings in the contract that we currently have, which we have cancellation clauses. This this request here is for an amendment, but the that is the organization that responded to this. We had we only had one viable response, other than the one that said, "Thank you for sending us the information." It is based on a lot of factors, not just, we'll look at 3 buildings. Their costs are based on the complexity of the buildings, the size of the buildings, who all is being interviewed in the buildings, what are the total needs of the buildings. So it's not, we cannot simply say we're substituting this building for that building. Now, might there be an offset if we take one of the other buildings out? Possibly. I don't really know the degree of that offset. But those are all things I could look at for you.
So what you're saying is the major cost of that $49,000 original contract is just for two buildings, because there wouldn't be much for the old jail.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm
Well, then-
saying that,
We don't know.
Well,
It's
here's-
unknown, so they build
It says here in the letter to you that we've already begun exploring the possibility of reusing the historic jail office. We've done some early fit plans for moving the county services into the building.
that was in the use study. That was just very preliminary. That wasn't anything finalized. It was just, that was the community
I guess,
committee and
I
all
don't
of
know
that.
where in the discussion that was what our direction as the board that we were going to do.
Then,
We were gonna move community services into the old historic jail.
Well, there's nothing set. We're
No.
just trying to get a studies to find out because as you said earlier, Commissioner, that we're gonna take a look at utilizing our buildings. And, you know.
No,
sort of court-
the current
that's-
office space, I asked point direct, current office space we are currently using. We're not using the historic jail.
That's correct, but we could utilize it, can't we? Possibility thereof.
That
if we
never
have-
came, that was never in our discussions as a board.
I think where the confusion has been is that this topic has been on the table for many, many years with different board configurations. And my apologies if I misunderstood where we were going with this. This has been an ongoing discussion for a very long time,
It was-
starting
it-
with
it-
the,
It was discussed
starting
in the
with the-
previous years, but up until this year, when we talked about doing an office utilization study, it was going to be on the current office space that we currently use.
I don't recall that
I
clarification.
asked you
but
point blank right here. And you
I
said
just heard
yes.
Our current buildings that I didn't see that. I didn't understand.
No, I said office space we are currently using, and you said yes.
Commissioners, I'm not here to argue with the board. I'm here to figure out what the board wishes to do. If I misunderstood the board's intentions.
Well, I'll make a
over the-
motion to remove the historic jail from the study, put in the Justice Center to look at our current utilization study.
I'll second that. Sounds like a good idea.
So for clarifications, the board is looking at an amendment or a termination or just to re-enter negotiation.
Amendment to removing the historic jail and adding the Justice Center to our current office space utilization study.
Save the cost of person.
Yeah, see, those are all factors that go into a feasibility on use. Until,
You're not gonna get that many actions if you open that up.
So what are we gonna do with that building? This is a chance to finally look at some ideas that maybe we don't see as people locally. They say, look, there's an idea that we could try this, try that. That's what we're hiring them for. If we don't have them looking at it closer, it makes it more difficult for them to do the job. You know, that's why we're hiring these people.
They've already-
May I continue, sir? We're looking at getting some ideas as to how to make it more efficient and keeping them on campus. I like the idea of being out on the highway, but is it feasible? Maybe we could do it all here in this area of these three buildings. We don't know. That's why we're hiring people that do this all the time. We have ideas. We have 5 different ideas up here probably. But let's look at what's best for everybody and get the information we need. If we're gonna make a decision, we need to have information. I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like to have put it on the November ballot. Let the taxpayers decide what to do with this.
This is just a study though. It's not, we don't make the decision. This is just a study.
I agree. It's
What we're,
just a-
gonna- you know, it's not, we're gonna do it. We don't have to do anything they tell us.
But because we didn't have the Justice Center included, which we had a consensus that the Justice Center, the current office space we are utilizing to be studied. So, but it's not, it wasn't in there. It was, that was taken out and the historic jail was put in there. Does that make sense?
The
Yeah, 'cause we
idea,
own
when they sent out the contract, when these folks made the contract or made the proposal, they had three buildings. Start jail, highway building, as I call it, and this building.
Yeah,
Okay, and that's what was in the paper that they made the contract on. We're thinking of adding the JC building over here, well then that adds to the contract. We start switching things around, they glanced at the old building as the complexity of that. In order for that to be utilized, hey, we all know it needs some update. Okay, so let's let them look at it and tell us what we need. If we don't find out information, it's gonna be very difficult to make a concerted decision for our people. And yes, I think we should add the JC building because it has some room possibility. I don't think we're gonna start using the jail cells as meeting rooms. or
no,
anything
no,
like that, but
I don't think it has nothing to do with the jail itself. I'm
True.
talking about the office space in the building.
Mhm.
And that's what our consensus in our discussions to do this utilization study was on the current office space we reviewed. How did the Justice Center get excluded? And the historic jail added?
Way back at the beginning, when we were putting together the proposal request,
Was
that was,
everything
that
we
was in
owned.
that part,
That was never in our discussions on the consensus to do this utilization study.
I
to
thought
add
it
the
was
his-
everything we owned. It's just a study to do everything we own and see potential uses for it. I think it should be included, all four buildings, personally.
For another $13,000.
Well, then we have a study done
then we know what's going on.
and we can make decisions a little more accurately after we see a study done.
The options, in my way of thinking anyway, would include feasibility and potential cost. Some of the cost for any retrofitting of any of the buildings may be something that this board does not want to do. You may throw out all options, you may include part of the options, you will be heavily involved, I would assume, in all of this as we move forward and get information. But it's just information gathering. It's not saying this is the only way. That building may in fact be totally, I wouldn't think that of all the buildings, the rest of them wouldn't be taken off the table, but the one that's most likely to be unusable might in fact be the old. Then again, we also have storage needs. We have a lot of various needs once we start retrofitting this. We have the license center. We have a lot of different things that we're looking at. I don't know the outcome of any particular utilization study. But I do think gathering the facts would be helpful.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of going with Eric's motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
2-2. Now. Table it. More information.
When are they gonna start this process? Or already started props?
Just some preliminary, they haven't started meeting with anyone yet. We're kind of waiting to see what the commissioners' thoughts are.
Next week's meeting is probably a workshop, so it's 2 weeks before we can full board to make a decision.
Well, you could still make a motion to include the action item number 3 of adding $13,250 to the contract to include the Justice Center.
I'll move for that.
I'll second it. I like the idea of all of our buildings being included in a study.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to include the study. More discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed?
No. Aye.
Let's,
And just for clarification, not all buildings, because we're not including things like highway building and the other buildings that we own in other communities. I just want to make sure that,
have they done a study on jail?
a potential use study, it's an alternative use study, what may be feasible, but it wasn't a space utilization. That really, Commissioner, involves working with department heads, determining what basic needs are, determining what infrastructure changes might have to be made, if that's even feasible. But it's really looking at how we co-locate individuals within a department or departments with other departments for more efficient operations, how we provide flexible facilities, looking at what might a county need in 10 years, which is difficult to always imagine what that would be. So if you have alternative uses, how do you build a structure that is more flexible for that?
What was the
Not
outcome
build
of
a
the
structure,
last study,
excuse me,
just for the record?
arrange your offices so they're more flexible. Pardon me?
What was the outcome of the last study, just for the record?
That was with the community, I don't have it right in front of me, but that was a community committee where they met with members to try to do, the community and the county, which included board members, to look at what might be feasible uses for this building. Could it be used as in partnership with the city? There was that discussion. Could it be used by private industry? Is there a challenge with parking? And could it possibly be used by the county itself? And the outcome was there were potentially three potentially viable uses. And that is just where it was left. And the county determined at that time not to move forward with for various reasons with private use that would and then I think the city, if I'm not mistaken, at that time didn't want to move forward with any kind of arrangement either, based on what their needs were.
Wasn't that done with a grant, $75,000 grant?
Yes, Commissioner, that was done in the grant.
And there was all three ideas that could be used for.
Potential uses was how it's
And
phrased.
there was actually plans built up because Collaborative Design says in their letters that there was some plans that were,
They did some,
there's some cost estimates. To do office
Preliminary.
space, it was
Mhm.
3.7 million to turn it into an office space.
that was their preliminary analysis. That's why I don't believe that they would require a whole lot in their original bid. It wouldn't require they had the groundwork done, but certainly not the work on what actual departments are.
So there isn't going to be a lot of work that's going to be going into that then. So basically, the original contract was
I
just
think it'd
all
be more
two
detailed.
buildings then.
I think more, no, it'd be a lot of detail that would need to be fleshed out as to which departments might be co-located, maybe none would be co-located, maybe it's only, and that was very superficial as to what,
I'd like to leave with this design in 2 weeks.
okay,
Hash out this building, Meyer building, Justice Center, with the option of the old jail.
We already lost that vote. The Justice Center is not going to be included.
He wants it on the agenda for 2 weeks with the collaborative group.
See if we can, what they can give us a better price and if we gotta pay an additional here, maybe they'll give us a package deal, I don't know. Something to start talking about it. It's three that we all decided on. It's the old jail for an option.
Well, then
I'll
that'd be,
communicate with them.
that's totally changing the contract, so that'll be
Yep.
null and void then.
That James contract. Would you willing to do that? I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not gonna guess what another person is thinking or would do. I won't speculate on that, but I certainly will arrange for to see if they're available at that time.
Okay.
And it would likely be a virtual meeting then,
Okay.
because I don't, it's probably not feasible for
That's
them to
fine.
drive down again
Right.
We can do that.
without having
So we get
any
everybody
kind of
at the same
contracting
place.
in.
Some confusion here.
Sounds good.
Some of us were thinking that it was set this way, some are thinking that it's set this way, so let's do a new contract. Let's get everybody on the same page. Sound all right for the last meeting of the month?
Well, then we can revisit it, that's, get more information.
It's the contract says right now, the buildings that we should use. but the old jail got thrown in there somehow.
Like I said, there's been a lot of apparently confusion amongst many people about that.
Well, when I say, you know, that I'm looking like the bad guy, and that's fine.
No,
But when
you're
I
not.
say that in our public discussions, at our public meetings with workshop, and the old jail never came up as a possible use for community services. It was to be studying the current office space we are utilizing.
I think that,
Where am I wrong on this? Show me that that was how it was discussed. That's how we came to a consensus.
We talked about including the old jail.
No, we didn't.
I thought we did too.
I can't, I'm not.
And I don't think there was ever any discussion that that building would be used for community services.
Well, it says in
There
the
was-
letter, it says right here to you that it is.
I mean, that is a potential, I don't even know if there's enough space there for that. It could be used for, when you do a space utilization study, I don't have a preconceived idea because I'm not an expert at it as to which space is appropriate for which groups. It could be appropriate possibly for part of community service. It could be appropriate possibly for the administrative offices. It could be appropriate possibly, if at all, for maybe land use or certain components of it. Or it may not be appropriate for anything other than storage and maybe not even that. I don't know.
I guess I don't understand why the historic jail would be thought of as office space we're currently using.
Well, let's get the information and go from there.
Right.
See if we can haggle
And a
over.
Zoom meeting is fine for 2 weeks, the
2 weeks,
last week
have
of the month.
Okay, thank you,
That was so
commissioners. I appreciate the feedback.
Well, Sorry, we have a fourth, remember, we have one more, fourth
One
action
more.
item. The
That's the one
TNT
I-
meeting, December 13th, 2022. Sorry.
Hi. So, whoopsie. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to set that meeting now because I have to put it on our, statement, so I have to, schedule that today if we can. Would that work for everybody? Tuesday, the 13th of December, 6:00 PM?
6 P.M.
Yes.
Yeah, I scheduled set, so I move to set the truth and taxation meeting for December 13th at 6 P.M.
Second, change the date to December 13th at 6 o'clock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, together on the 13th.
Thank you.
I know this little memo that you handed out had the 14th on it, but it is the 13th, right?
Yeah.
I've got it highlighted. Donna
Oh,
on the
emailed
bottom
me the
there, yeah.
13th.
Okay,
That's,
I was reading that.
Down the road,
Okay.
putting that jail on the election ballot. Or the counties, they can decide what they want to do with that old jail. Is that possible?
I'm sorry, Greg, could you move your speaker? It's a little hard to hear you here. What did you say?
I was just wondering if we could still get that on the election, that old jail that I talked to you about.
The election?
Red WB?
Yeah, they decided to want to keep the jail, keep it or tear it down, one or the other, let the people decide.
I assume that's too late.
I think the ballots are already ready for the election.
Okay,
Absentees.
Oh, yeah.
okay, I'm sorry. I still don't know
That's too
what the
late.
question is.
That'd be too late.
It's too late to do that, ain't it?
For what now?
To do a referendum.
Oh, yeah, absolutely too late. Yeah. Yeah, the ballots are all out already. Mhm.
That we could do
Yeah.
next.
Yep, no, ballots are all, in fact, they've been printed. We're testing them now, so. Yep. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, I got.
Yep.
I only have one meeting. And that was, the extension meeting, and it was. See, I have all kinds of notes scribbled all over here. It was done as a Zoom meeting, and we had Annette talk on she's our SNAP representative for extension, and she spoke on the different food shelves and how they're doing, and emphasized using more farm to table stuff and more fresh foods, et cetera, like that. Was quite a bit on that. They are at a convention, or were at a convention up in Duluth area for extension. A lot of information that'll be used around our area and the whole state. And then our next meeting will be our December meeting, which is when we put on new board members. And we also do an evaluation of our employees there, not our employees, but the director, 4-H director, and Katie, of course, too, would be included on that. I did bring up about the state convention that, not convention, but the extension meeting I went to, how they hosted a group of young people, 4-H did, from Ukraine. And they were, made to be welcome, showed around. It was really well received. They had a video on it. And they're also pushing at the state level more, not only rural 4-H, but cities, getting the kids into baking, sewing, leadership roles, everything. So there's a big push on that up in the state level too. Did you have anything else, Eric, on that?
No.
Okay. I do have 2 meetings on Thursday, workforce and Southeast Minnesota Emergency Services. So I'll have extra information next week.
That's it? That's
I'm
it?
done.
Just maybe to add a little bit to that. Katie was asking for some input on doing a cover crop field day,
Right.
and
She has that on December 8th
yeah.
with a lot of the local
Mhm.
area people from 10 to 2
Yep.
and the Egg Society.
Yep.
And you were gonna get some information for
Yeah,
on something.
like Bob and Dave at Soil and Water could help
Oh,
with some
that's
of that. She
And
also,
it is open to the whole board to go to it if they want to.
Katie also brought up that you're having a meeting planned for the ag economy. in the
Yes.
county.
Is that December 8th one?
I do not recall the exact date off the top of my head. It's by invite only, and we are working on our invitations. We
Okay.
actually have a meeting on it tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'll have more information on that in the future, but
Okay.
Yesterday had a PMT meeting with TKDA group, and we did some discussion on the bus tour and how the things went. We thought everything went good. I know there's some, this point, we didn't stop at Como Falls there, hoping to tour that, but we couldn't do everything, but overall, we thought the bus tour was very good. In November 9th is the tentative date scheduled for our next meeting. It's going to be a 2-hour session to get to the nuts and bolts of what our goals and expectations are in the comp plan. And then when we do that meeting, we'll have bring it up to at our workshop on what we've discussed to have the full board have input, go through it.
Okay.
In that 2-hour meeting.
It's just to Dewey and I for that meeting.
And then. we'll
And then,
discuss it the next
we
week.
can discuss it at the next workshop.
Which will be the next day of the
Right.
I had a water plan meeting on Thursday, last Thursday. There was a question from Dan about now that the WINLAC is getting established, eventually that this committee might be going away.
Your committee,
Yeah, the
the water,
water plan committee.
we didn't discuss that.
Okay. Well, I said I hadn't heard nothing. I didn't have no knowledge on that, but because they get some funding, for push-up ponds and clean out ponds and stuff like that. I was wondering if that was gonna be,
It wasn't brought up at all.
okay.
Do they coincide, the water plan with our WINLAC deal, or they're doing the same thing?
Well,
so they
it's
keep
their
it
own,
light?
they do their own thing with the push-up ponds and the clean out pond programs.
So I think-
So it was just, he was just curious. He'd said that he thought Dave told him that wouldn't make a difference. So there was just some questions about that.
Confusion as to if one's gonna affect the other.
Right.
It wasn't brought up last Monday.
He said that the WINLAC thing was reviewed and he was a little disappointed with the stream bank thing wasn't made a priority A versus it was made a priority B. He would get more funding for that, but the committee decided that it wasn't. They made that declaration because he assumed because of the expense of the stream bank plan of fixing stream banks is expensive, so that's probably why.
They are taking input on that stuff. I can forward you the draft.
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
And it has prices.
well, he gave his comment on how it should be classified, but it ended up going the other way, so he was a little disappointed with that, but it's, you still can get funding for it, it's just not as easy, it's a little more difficult.
Mhm.
That's all I got.
Not too many meetings going on in my area. I guess the question I have with this district meeting coming up to 31st of October, how much involved in our planning do we need to be involved with?
None.
None. Okay,
Nope, it's all arranged by AMC.
they do it,
Food, the hall, everything.
so
Yes,
reservations been made so that then they
Yes.
take over.
right.
Okay,
I think we just gotta show up.
We just have to show up.
and
And then they keep track of, who
Yeah.
showed up and they bill the county.
because I was
Their
looking at
portion
the
of it.
agenda there, and which is good. I guess I have a question. Are there any other communities in our county that allow ATVs and golf carts on city streets?
Houston has an ordinance that allows it.
So
To a
does
certain
Caledonia.
point?
Does what?
Caledonia has an ordinance regarding it.
Yep.
The PD has more information if you
Okay,
need it.
all right. Well, there was some discussion that came up from the council member in Crescent. So I was just wondering what kind of information, how it came about, and what's the regulation. So PD would have it and Houston has it
Cities have their own ordinances on
for
that.
each one.
Spring Grove, I would call them too. I think they have a plan. 'cause
They have a plan in their area.
'cause they-
Supposed to be the big fours, so Crescent, Houston, Caledonia, Spring Grove as far as. Okay. And I guess I was gonna ask Carol for for our group session next week, we will have an up-to-date ARPA
Yes.
plan and ready, so we have an idea as to,
Yes.
Well,
you'll
we
get
can
it
do it.
later on this week,
that'd be great.
and to include our capital improvements fund that we have and.
Good.
We've already got several requests for that work group session, so just so you know, it's probably gonna be a long one.
Pack a lunch.
Yeah.
No, that's all I have then.
We have a couple other ones besides.
Mhm.
There was some discussion in land use meeting this morning, committee meeting, that possibility for E911 signage that needs to be replaced. And they can't use the,
And the state legislator has a funding that you can't use it for replacement signs funding.
they can only do it for enhanced 911
Mhm.
services, so. It was brought up in discussion of maybe possibly using ARPA money to replace some of those signs. So there's another one.
Yeah. Most of those signs were from a grant way back
Right.
15 years ago, I
Yeah.
believe, when
Kermit Gray got it done. He's one that got it started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kermit, and, you know, so some of them,
They did an assessment of the posts, the signs, and the
Okay.
post and signs. So, but we didn't have all the figures, but it sounds quite expensive.
okay. Yep,
We're talking to the 911 too, maybe there's grants that they could come up with for these signs too.
I'll bring that up at the meeting when I get to Rochester.
Okay, 'cause I mean, there, I think that's where Kermit got some of the money to start, get it started, was through them, so maybe they might have a grant or something we can snag the place the signs. Just a thought.
Well, there's potential of hundreds of thousands of dollars to
Mhm.
replace them. Not all of the stakes are bad, but a lot of the signs are getting faded and disfigured.
Everything that faces to the south in my township, where I live, is faded.
Yes.
So. Maybe that's really stole. Well, then if everybody's done, we'll go on to our public comment for closing. We're gonna have much action.
I've got one announcement.
Yes, sir. Please tell us.
Yep, so just so everyone knows, the deadline to complete the comprehensive land use survey has been extended to October 31st. So I'm assuming everyone here has probably taken the survey, but spread the word. People have until October 31st. I want to make sure the press got that
It's been
too.
extended 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It was mid-October, it's now October 31st.
They've only had like 135 responses.
You're kidding.
Little disappointing in the survey results.
Yeah,
And it's been, we sent out postcards,
Mhm.
What else can you do?
advertised, it's on our website and everything, but. you
there
know,
might just be some people that were waiting until the last minute, so hopefully they don't wait even longer now.
Yeah,
They had a surge in the beginning and then it's fell off dramatically, but you know, a lot of the farmers are in the fields too, so it's the last thing on their mind, probably.
Let me get a couple of weeks, they get a rainy week, then might change, they might all fill them up, and who knows?
Yeah, so spread the word on that.
Yeah.
There's a press release in front of you.
We're advertising about that.
She's gonna put it in the paper.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Jeannie was gonna do that.
And I emailed all the businesses that I have an email for this morning. So hundreds of businesses.
Okay.
Got a reminder.
Anything else?
No.
Carol, you got anything?
So move.
second.
Got a motion, second to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys.